Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi.
Catherine, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Almost. Katherine Schadewald.
Shadwell. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I will ask you about your family. So I would like to know from where you got this surname and how did it come out to be this. So, but with that, let me first introduce you to Catherine Shadwald, and she is the founder of Deliver Workforce Solutions. She is driven by a lifelong passion for helping people build meaningful careers. A trailblazer who became the first female tool and die maker at General Electric, that is, I believe, GE,
Mhm.
in Schenectady, New York. She turned her groundbreaking experience into a mission to empower others through education and opportunity. Catherine specializes in developing innovative employee training programs for the manufacturing, trade, and construction industries, helping businesses grow strong, skilled teams. With advanced degrees in management, engineering, technology, and and curriculum and administration, she brings a unique blend of technical expertise and heart for human potential, bridging the gap between education, industry, and community success. Kathy, I welcome you to Hivin and Vibin with Dr. Bibi.
Thank you for having me.
So, Kathy, can we start with asking you about your family? Where does this family name, Shedwald, come from?
So my maiden name was Dagonzagay. So and so I have Indian membership in a North American Native American tribe. And the surname is my husband's side of the family. And so Shadwald comes from, it's a German name, and it comes from the Black Forest of Germany.
Uh-huh. Okay. So that's quite a mix, actually. We are talking about. Okay. So can I ask you about more of your family, the family that you were born in?
Sure. So while I am at French, my mother's side of the family came from France. My father's side of the family is from Canada. And like I said earlier, so my father's side of the family is also a member of the Abenaki tribe in Quebec City, Canada.
Oh, but Quebec is French.
Yes.
So that's where the connection came between your father and your mother?
Actually, family has moved down from the Canadian Canada, and so they actually met in Albany, New York.
Oh my God. The world is so small and somehow it just brings people together.
Does.
Great. Uh-huh. So, and have you been to your native land and have you visited there?
It's on my bucket list. While I've been up to Quebec City when I was younger, I didn't get the opportunity to visit the actual reservation. So it is on my bucket list to go and do. It's a very small tribe. It's only 300 to 400 people that live on the reservation, and it's only a little over, I think, around 2,000 people in the nation, in the Abenaki Nation.
Okay. Uh-huh. So you must be so do you follow any of your indigenous practices?
I do receive they send out a newsletter all the time, which I read and keep up on what's going on. Um, but my traditions are more from the French, my mother's French background.
Wow. Such a mix of cultures, and I just love the mix of cultures when I hear about them. It just tells me that there is so much, evolution that happens when two cultures come together. One question I'll ask before I move on to your career, and that is, how did this mix of cultures influence you growing up?
In the area in Albany back in the day, that there was a large community of French and a large community of Italian people. So, uh, and my husband's Italian has Italian background too. So it is just that mix of culture that, we all love and are fond of. Uh, but my parents went to high school, were in the same high school together. So that's kind of how they got connected.
Okay, so there is Abenaki, Italian, French. That's the mix that you were born with.
Yes. Yep.
All right, now I get it. Okay, so now let's move on to asking you about a little bit about how and why did you find Deliver Workforce Solutions?
So I spent the majority of my life in the education world, but that world consisted of career and technical education. So we prepared students for college and career in their particular um, technical fields. So that could be nursing, culinary, auto, collision, computers, all different kinds of career fields that I worked with. And I became a curriculum supervisor, became very interested in working with the different programs, and I helped them to become accredited in their industry, like a national industry accreditation. So while I was doing that, I was always helping them to build those skill sets that were necessary for the students to become successful in their career of choice.
Uh-huh. And how did the whole thing begin? I mean, when you started your career, what were you, and how did you then find your way through to Deliver Workforce Solutions?
So through opportunities, because after the tool and die maker, once I received that certification and my degree, it was a downturn in the economy. So that kind of throws you into your next part of your journey. And so that journey led me to all the years that I spent teaching and then as a curriculum supervisor and a director. For career programs and then developing curriculum. And then once I ended that project where I was working for a national nonprofit, I was a project manager for 3 different program areas: aerospace, informatics, and automated materials joining technology. And then it was like, okay, so what next? So then I decided to, at that point, it was like, okay, I think I should start my own business instead of going out and doing more of what I've already done in the past. So that's when I started Deliver Workforce Solutions. And I thought, okay, well, let me just focus on the employee life cycle. Because in particular in small businesses, they weren't focusing on the employee life cycle. They're focusing on their discipline. That's they're passionate about, but they really don't have the systems in place for it to be a successful business. So that's where I go back to my roots, which is education, and bring that into the fold and help them with their organizational structure. And then once you get the once you clean up the inside of your house, then you can showcase it for top quality candidates to come and work for you. And whether that's, through an internship program, whether that's just outright recruiting, but I try to give the business the best opportunity to bring in the best workers that they're looking for that match them, their needs, and then help them to develop those people through education, of course, and then to retain them. So that's how I got to where I am with Deliver Workforce Solutions. And then the latest projects that I've been working on have been in the training realm, because what I learned with AI is that you can now expedite the time. When I was working on those first curriculums that I talked about, it took a very long time to come up with the design of the curriculum, because there was 9 programs being developed at the same time. So there was multiple project managers, and there needed to be a standardized approach. There needed to be a format that we were following. And that design process took 6 months at best before we actually could get started and produce. AI really takes a lot out of the time element. So now I can go out and produce training in a very shortened time frame, and that also decreases cost for the employer.
Okay, so then the one question that comes, that rises from what you're just saying is the role of AI. So if you're going to talk about that it decreases time, what are the advantages that you have found with using AI, applying AI, and what are the disadvantages of applying AI?
Well, the advantages I found is my research is shortened immensely. I don't have to just go out to different databases and look for, what I have in mind to do. I can use AI, and it goes across all the different databases and brings me the answers to my questions. And so it helps me to design that that program. So some things I've done with it is design the standards, because I always begin with industry standards, and a lot of times I'm working in areas that don't have industry standards. Given, the aerospace, informatics, and automated materials joining technology, there were no standards for students. Another one I'm working on now is electronic waste. There are very little standards for employees. A lot of it is facility focused, but it's not necessarily employee focused. So it's helped me a great deal in that regard. Also coming up with the design of it, I know what I want to put in it. And then when I plug it into AI, and it can give me responses to how to go about doing that, such as adding gamification. It can actually, put that into my framework that I'm working on. It's not a one stop kind of thing. I'm asking for a lot of things. So I'm actually using that information to build what I'm trying to achieve. The negatives, honestly, I can't say, I guess maybe I think you need to know what you are asking for. So you need to know if it's giving you the correct information. That would be, a challenge. If you don't know what you're asking for and you get information, you want it to be correct. So I check for, what are your sources that you're using. I go back and check those sources, because sometimes those aren't real sources, or you can't find it. So I like to make sure that I have my sources. Those are kind of some of the challenges that, that I've looked at as I'm going through the development process.
Right. So you mentioned that you have to know what you want from AI to be able to, use what the AI is giving you, and to know that, what you're getting is really authentic and needed for your application. If let's start with when you first started using AI. And how did you then learn to how did you then learn to train your AI? Because that's one of the things that people struggle with.
Ah, um, so in my degrees, I did a lot of research, and I'm passionate about research. So for me, it was pretty intuitive to ask the right things. And if you don't get back the right information, it's like, okay, I didn't have my question correct. My daughter works in technology, and she had to create prompts for the employees. And when I say, it was pretty intuitive to me, I already knew what I needed to ask. I didn't have to have somebody create that for me. So I think that could be a challenge if people are not used to using a tool like that.
Yeah. So I'm asking this question because a lot of people are now trying to adapt to AI and are trying to, start applying AI in their work. And one of the challenges that I find most people face is, how do you know which prompt will give you the right outcome? And so that's where, what you just mentioned, a little study is needed, is what I understand from what you're saying.
Mhm.
You have to know what you really want so that your idea is almost there, ready in place. You
Yes.
really know what your content should be, and
Yeah.
then you go to AI and ask it to, sort of enhance it a little more, or tune it down, or tone it to what you want. That is what you're really doing when you're applying AI.
Exactly. And if it gives you something that's like it's not answering your question or what you're asking it to do, then you need to go back and come up with a better question that's going to provide you with the right information.
Right. Yeah. So what I do is, when I'm doing my writings, or, when I'm doing my content, I practically create everything manually. And then with that, I go to AI and I ask it to tweak it here or there, or make it more crisper, or make it more, whatever I need done
Yeah.
to toning
Yep.
it up. That's what I really do. That's how I apply AI right now.
Yeah, so I'll give you another example. What I did with this electronic waste project that I'm working on, I start my developing my programs with a set of standards, as I shared. Um, and so some of the information for me is new. Um, it's not something that I'm an expert in. So when I asked AI to develop a set of standards, technical standards, it gave me a set of standards. Now, of course, they needed a lot of work. They weren't in the right format. I'd like to start with a verb, for example, and it didn't necessarily do that. It gave me, so I had to really work with what I got from AI. But then, because some of it is unknown to me, then I searched out a subject matter expert and asked for feedback and said, what am I missing? What are the gaps? What is here that I don't need? So that I verified it and validated it with the subject matter experts to get what I needed in the end.
Right. Okay. So before I start asking you about, how did you bridge between management, engineering technology, and of course, human potential. Let me ask you first, what is the mantra of your leadership style?
So I am the kind of leader that likes to guide people through a lot of questioning. So first, I like to understand them, where are they coming from, to match my solutions to their needs, and how I would go about doing that. So again, it's a lot
Right.
of the education.
Okay. So you first learn about the people and then you start working on them. What makes you a leader? How did you know that you are a leader?
I knew I was a leader because every time I was in a committee, I ended up becoming the leader. So then I started looking at that and, what skills did I bring that made me that leader? And first of all, I would tend to bring a structure to the committee. Um, Following an agenda. I'm uncomfortable when it's not, when we're not on the topic. And so an agenda will help to provide that structure. But it can also be a collaborative agenda so that it's not just my agenda, but it's everybody else has an opportunity to provide their input into the agenda. So at least we're on target with what we need to complete for that particular meeting. So I bring a lot of structure. I'm a systems thinker, so I'm always thinking systems as opposed to emotional. It keeps the meeting on focus and doesn't get off in the weeds based on someone's emotions. Otherwise, we're not going to get our jobs done, what we're there to accomplish. So we have our goals too, and that's an important thing. What are the goals that we're trying to meet? And then the agenda should, just like in a curriculum, the instruction should uh, align to the standards, and a meeting should align to the goals that are set forth for the business. So that's how I knew I was a leader, as I always ended up
Okay.
in that position.
And when was it the first time that that you rose to a position? How many years
Um,
back was that?
okay, so I'm the kind of person that is bored easily. So I would, so I taught for 15 years, but in teaching, I started out teaching machine shop, but then I moved to teaching um, remediation to students using computer programs, and then an occupational math and occupational science courses became something that the state wanted to make sure that all of the career tech students had. So I, became one of the trainers. I always took that leadership role. I always looked for that opportunity and took that leadership role. Went into administration. So then I was the curriculum supervisor, became the director of the CTE Resource Center for New York State. So I was always looking for that next opportunity because I was bored once I kind of became proficient. Then I was like, okay, well, what next?
Aha. So that's how it is. When was the first time you realized that you get bored very easily?
Hmm, that's a that's a good question. I would I would always start thinking, what's next? I mean, that really was so when I was teaching, then I was like, okay, well, um, I, you know, I thought I was talking with the principal too, and the position was created based on our conversations of what needed to happen at the school. So then I took on that role, and I was able to really help the teachers, you know, with their programs to improve them. So I think that was kind of maybe the point at which I thought that.
Okay. So, uh, When I'm going back to the point where you first, you became the tool and die maker at
Mm-hmm.
GE.
Okay.
How did that come about?
Well, again, I was like in high school, I was thinking, what am I going to do? What do I want to do for my career? And the guidance counselors were less than helpful. So I started thinking, what skills am I good at? And and what opportunities are out there? And so then I decided, okay, well, I think I could do at the time it was mechanical drawing, and I could get into General Electric's apprenticeship for that. But that was a time in the in the world of evolution that mechanical drawing was going by the wayside and CAD was coming out. And they weren't hiring people for that apprenticeship. But they sent me a letter and said, we're interested if you would like to interview for a position in our machine shop apprenticeship. And so I thought, okay, well, what do I have to lose? It's something new. I hadn't thought about it, but I can surely give it a try. And so that's what I did. Started the apprentice program, and it was actually my way of instead of going directly to college. I come from a big family. I have five brothers, and so paying for our college wasn't an option. So going through an apprenticeship where the company would pay for it and I would get my career that way, I thought was, why not? Should try it.
Uh-huh. So that was a pretty practical and a very pragmatic approach that you took to your career and also to
Hmm.
life.
Yep.
And did this tone continue all through your career, this pragmatic approach?
Yes, that's the what next. Because once I had achieved, like one degree or one career, then I was like, what next? And then I would, and opportunities seemed to kind of jump out at me, and I would say, oh, well, I think I could do that. So I would move on to the next opportunity.
Right. So when you joined GE as an apprentice, how many women were there working with you?
So there were not a lot of women at the time. Um, Once you went through the training building, so you spent about 13 months going through training building, learning the basic machine tools that were there. Then um, you looked for a job as an apprentice in one of the other departments. And so the department that I ended up in was large motors, tool and die room. So other people ended up in, R&D or gas turbine, steam turbine, but I really was more interested in the being a tool maker, a tool and die maker. So I was accepted into the large motors tool room.
Yeah, and how many women were there other than you?
I was the first woman, and then there was another person, Kathy, who followed me, and then there were two guys, so there were four of us at the time. Yeah.
Oh, great. All right. So there were two Cathys and two guys.
Hmm.
Fantastic. And from there, what happened next?
Well, it was a time when they decided to sell large motors. So it was at the end of my apprenticeship, but you couldn't. There were no other jobs open at the moment. It was like it was the early 80s. So we were sent back, the four of us were sent back to the training building, and I only had like 6 weeks left. So I finished the apprenticeship and finished my 2-year degree in management engineering technology. And so when I graduated, then I was laid off. 6 months later, the apprenticeship program actually closed, and the rest of the people that were in the apprentice program at the time went to another manufacturing plant, Waterville Arsenal. So they finished out their apprenticeships there and stayed on with Waterville Arsenal.
And what about you?
I went into education as a machine
Right.
shop teacher. That's when I
All
started
right.
my teaching. Yep.
Uh-huh. And then you taught there for how many years?
So I taught there for 20, well, I was employed by them for 20 years. So 15 of it was teaching, and then I went into administration.
All right. Great. Uh-huh. Wow. And then after that, you made your own, after that, you founded Deliver Workforce Solutions.
No, not yet. Then there was a position as a director of CTE Resource Center for New York State. So I became the executive director of that, and our role was to help high need schools in the big 5 cities in New York. It could be other schools too, but they were the main focus. And then also there was a training element, the professional development for teachers. So we put on 7 conferences. They were regionally based per year.
Right. Okay. And from there,
From there, I did a smaller learning community grant. So I worked with out in the school improvement world, again in CTE, but helping schools. And then from there, I was very interested in this project that was going on for the aerospace, informatics, and automated materials joining. And I knew somebody who was working for the national organization. So, and there was an opening. The project had been going on for 2 years. And so I then left New York State and went with this national company to develop be a project manager and develop the curriculums. So that was at the end of those projects. It was like, okay, what next? It was always, what next? And that's when I decided I needed to go out on my own. I wasn't ready to retire, but I really, still wanted to, work with businesses instead of schools. And so that's when I made the leap to do that.
right. So I can see the variations that has come through, and it has mostly come through with the prompt of what next and what else can I do after this, or how can I apply this somewhere else. So that is the thread that has actually, dictated most of your movements and got you to where you are today. You are right now bridging the gap between education, industry, and community success. How does community come into the picture?
So the one project I'm working on right now with the electronic waste, the the target for the employees that we want to create the training for is the underserved communities. So it's creating employee training for that group of people, career changers, veteran population. So that's the community element that we want to bring into what we're doing.
Right. Okay. Let's talk about, I'm sure this whole journey was not smooth all through the time. Uh, First, you were laid off. That's the right at the beginning of your career. But then after that, what were the other challenges that you faced, or maybe even struggles that you faced?
Uh, okay, let's see. In developing the curriculum, I'm going to use that one as an example. Um, when I started that role as project manager, they had intended to create curriculum that was project-based for the curriculum. It was 2 years in, and they still did not have that focus. It was still teacher directed, very much so. And they were measuring that, and they didn't know how to get to the project base. So that was the challenge, was to figure out how to do that. Because I have a very strong background in project-based and constructivism, um, it didn't come right away. The answer didn't come right away. But in continuously, reflecting on it and figuring it out, I figured out that we could use the engineering design process as the design of each project, so that the students it would be student-centered, and it would lead them through the different parts of the engineering design process, from the problem or the scenario that was provided to the prototype that they ultimately designed. So then it was just filling in the gap. It needed to be um, integrated with the English. It needed to be integrated with math. So, and also, again, they did not have the standards. So we started with the standards. So that was, I guess it was a challenge. I wouldn't call it as much of as a struggle, but it was a challenge. I guess another struggle was always being a woman and in mostly male-dominated industries. So that always had its challenges. But I always felt that, if I could work harder and prove myself, that I would be accepted. And that worked for me all the time.
Let's talk about the women bit, because that, I think, is one topic that is there in most women's minds, and especially if you're trying to reach a certain place or position in your career, then this does come up. So let's talk about that. And what were exactly the challenges that you faced as a woman?
Well, let's go back to the tool room and being the first woman. So there were men that did not like the fact that I was in their space. Um, and they used to use, the tool room to change their clothes, because at the time, men wore aprons, and they came into work, they changed into their work clothes, and then so that all had to be changed. They had to, change in an area that was not, open. So that was one thing. And a lot of my men didn't like the fact that I was there, but I never took anything personally. I think that's important, because I think we get too easily offended, like, oh, they don't like me. And um, I never focused on that. I tend to be more objective to begin with. So, and I tend to be not, not a drama queen. So I just would ask questions, learn, produce. And, once I was an equal producer, um, then they think differently. So I always turned it around that way.
Uh-huh. Okay. But you mentioned you mentioned that, working harder to fit in. This is something that most women do. Most women find
Oh
that they
yeah.
have to put in longer number of hours, be more present, do deeper, always be more smarter. There has to be, you have to always keep exhibiting that you are better than you are better, and you have to continuously prove that you're better, give them evidence that you're better. How did you do that? First question. And the second question is, what is it that can be done to make this situation easier for women?
Well, first of all, I think the options for women are much better than when I was going through this. We didn't have the same opportunities. And, when I was in high school and I looked at the careers, there wasn't anything that I was really interested in. Um, and my sister-in-law and I would have conversations about this too. And she said the same thing, like she would have gone on to be a lawyer. Um, but that wasn't an opportunity that was offered her at the time. And that we're talking, early 80s. Um, but I think that I was always trying to learn. So I guess I didn't really look at it in a negative way that I had to be better than them. I wanted to be good at what I was doing and I wanted to learn it. So that was my motivation.
So what I'm getting from you here is that the learning part of it, the lifelong learning mental attitude that you had, was something internal rather than external.
Yes.
It was not the forces that was making you do it. It was you making yourself do it. And that is what eased the path. And also at the same time, it sort of made your path to grow better.
Yes.
Fantastic. I believe in that too myself. I always believe that the competition is inside and not outside.
Yeah.
It's all within you, what you do to better yourself. What is the legacy that you are going to leave behind?
I think the first legacy that I've already left behind is creating those 3 programs. So they were, for me, a total of 67 projects that I was able to, lead, facilitate the development of them. Um, Most of them were approved by the Library of Congress, and that kind of changed. Those were new programs that weren't out there for the high school students before. And this was a national company, so they were talking to, they were selling this product to many high schools across the country. Um, I'm very proud of that, that I was able to do for the younger generation. And now I'm really looking forward to creating the same kind of impact through training for other businesses so that that would be my second legacy, making things better
Fantastic.
and especially like in electronic waste, that is an area where the impact is not just on creating a world-class workforce, but it's also making an impact um, on the world for their, cleaning up waste. So um, I think that's important too.
Yeah, so the greener planet is what you are actually working on. And that
Yes.
makes a lot of major difference not only for us, but also for our next generations to come.
Yeah.
All this work that you've been doing, one mantra I got from you is that you keep learning, and lifelong learning has been one of your biggest guiding principles. What is it that sustains you as a leader? What do you do to sustain yourself?
I think that I've become very curious about many different topics, not just the work that I'm doing, business-wise, but in the health field, or other areas that I just, like, I wonder about that. And then I'll start, researching it. And so that, I think, yeah, and especially in the world of technology, that's that's an ongoing area of how do I do this, or how do I do this program or that new thing, or how do I keep ahead of the criminals that are trying to hack our computers, our finances, and everything else.
Totally,
So
totally
that's
agree.
yes, yeah.
What is it? How do you, no, it's not what, it is how do you want my audience or my listeners to connect with you?
So they can find me on my website, and I have a lot of blogs on there. And then my website is deliverworkforce.com. And then also I can be found on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Uh, Kathy, we have had such a beautiful conversation, and I believe one of the first uh, guests that I've had who has actually been uh, in the technology world, and in the world that is so male dominated, is what I would say. So fantastic, fantastic conversation. I just loved what we just discussed, and I hope my audience and my listeners will learn from you and will actually garner the nuggets of wisdom that you have just strewn all through this last half an hour or so. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Bye bye. See you all.
Bye-bye.